نحمده ونصلي على رسول الكريم أما بعد بسم الله. Today inshallah we will continue from verse number 13 of Surah Yaseen. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون, and present to them an example, the people of the city, when the messengers came to it, when we sent to them two, but they denied them. So we strengthened them with a third, and they said, indeed, we are messengers to you. So فَعَزَّزْنَا means أَيَّدْنَا, وَقَوَّيْنَا meaning we assisted them, we made them stronger. And then from this verse, there's a reminder about a town where people rejected the very notion of prophethood. Some scholars believe this town was the town of Antakya in Syria, but that cannot be determined for certain. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent two messengers to this town, and then later a third one for further support. And then there is difference of opinions whether these three people were prophets or they were actually messengers relaying the message of Isa alayhi salam. قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون. They said, you're not but human beings like us, and the most merciful has not revealed a thing. You are only telling lies. The people of this town had the same argument which other nations had raised before. They argued that the messengers were human like them. So how can they believe that they are receiving revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? As we learn in Surah Isra, verse 94, about other nations, وَمَا مَنَعَ النَّاسَ أَن يُؤْمِنُوا إِذْ جَاءَهُمُ الْهُدَى إِلَّا أَن قَالُوا أَبْعَثَ اللَّهُ بَشَرًا رَسُولًا. And nothing prevented men from believing when the guidance came to them, except that they said, has Allah sent a man as his messenger? So this has been a common theme throughout the history of mankind, that when people were sent as prophets, the nations have rejected them just on the notion of how can a man get revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون. They said, our Lord knows that we are messengers to you. So this was the speech of the messengers, that they are now responding back to the people of the town, that we are indeed the messengers. And if you notice, they said something similar before in the previous verse, but they said, Inna ilaykum mursalun. And this time, they said, Inna ilaykum lamursalun. So there's an extra lam in lamursalun. And the lam here is used for ta'keed. So in the first attempt, when they proclaimed prophethood, they were making a statement. But when people rejected their claim of prophethood, they had to go back with an emphasis, and that's common in Arabic, to use lam ta'keed in response to someone who is not accepting your argument. And hence this time, their response was, Inna ilaykum lamursalun. We are indeed messengers to you. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينُ. And you're not responsible except for clear notification. So the responsibility of messengers has always been to convey their revelation. They're not accountable for the actions of people. It is upon an individual to accept the message and then act upon it. The messengers are not responsible or accountable for the actions of the people, because guidance comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم. They said, indeed, we consider you a bad omen. If you do not desist, we will surely stone you, and they will surely touch upon you from us a painful punishment. So تطيرنا بكم meaning تشاءمنا بكم, we take a bad omen of you. What was the response of the messenger? The messenger said, قالوا طائركم معكم فإن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون. They said, your omen is with yourself. Is it because you were reminded? Rather, you are a transgressing people. So people of the town considered these three messengers as bad omen, as a hint of evil. If something bad were to come to them, they feared it would be because of these messengers. But the messengers responded that any misfortune would have been the outcome of their own deeds, meaning the evil actions of the people of this town. The bad omen was not because of the admonition and reminder that these messengers were bringing to them. And this behavior of taking bad omen was not unique to the people of this town. Other nations in the past had expressed similar behavior towards their prophets. So we learn about Bani Israel, what they said to Musa alayhi salam in Surah Araf, verse 131. They said, وَإِن تُصِبْهُمْ سَيِّئَةٌ يَطَّيَّرُوا بِمُوسَى وَمَن مَّعَهُ. And if a bad condition struck them, they saw an evil omen in Musa alayhi salam and those with him. And similarly, the people of Thamud said for Salih alayhi salam in Surah Naml, verse 47, قَالُوا اطَّيَّرْنَا بِكَ وَبِمَن مَّعَكَ. They said, we consider you a bad omen, you and those with you. So this has been a common thread in history, similar to how people have rejected a messenger coming in the form of a human being. They've also taken bad omen on messengers whenever a calamity befalled them. And the truth is that we see the same behavior today. When people face any hardship in life, they try to find an external factor, an scapegoat, instead of looking at their own state and their own actions. We clearly get the guidance that taking bad omen is equal to shirk. Narrated by Abdullah bin Masud in Sunan Abi Dawood, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, "At-tiyaratu shirkun." Taking bad omens is shirk. So this practice of considering something to be attracting evil or taking bad omen is not permitted in Islam. Now the opposite is not true. Taking good omen is actually recommended. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam used to take good omen, which is called fa'al. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam used to take good omens, as we learn at different occasions. One particular occasion is in the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. So when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was negotiating with the people of Mecca, Suhail bin Amr, who later on accepted Islam, came to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and negotiated on the behalf of people of Mecca. Now, the word Suhail means sahula or ease. And when he came to be the negotiator from people of Mecca, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam took this as a good omen. So we are allowed to take good omen or remain optimistic when a situation arises in front of us. Let's quickly review verses 13 to 19. Many past nations have rejected prophets and denied divine guidance for similar reasons. And there is prohibition in Islam of superstition and taking bad omen. وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين. And there came from the farthest end of the city a man running. He said, O my people, follow the messengers. So yas'a means yusri'u fi mashihi, to walk quickly. And aqsa al-Madina means outskirts of the city. So the verse mentions a man came running from the far end of the city. Who was this person? Quran does not mention his name, but historians believe he was Habib Najjar. And Habib Najjar accepted faith on the call of these messengers and had become Muslim. When he heard that people were planning to kill the messengers, he came rushing into the city and tried to convince them otherwise. The next few verses outline what Habib Najjar said to his people. اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون. Follow those who do not ask of you any payment, and they are rightly guided. وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون. And why should I not worship He who created me and to whom you will be returned? فطرني means خلقني, created me. أأتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغن عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون. Should I take other than him false deities, while if the most merciful intends for me some adversity, their intercession will not avail me at all, nor can they save me? إِنِّي إِذًا لَفِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. Indeed, I would then be in manifest error. So in these verses, we discover the wisdom of Habib Najjar in persuading his people. He reminded them how the messengers are selfless and devoted to their well-being. They are not asking for compensation. They are rightly guided and they wish your salvation. So he said, اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون. And then he invoked a thought of introspection in them. Isn't it only fair that I worship the one who created me, and that I remain mindful of my Lord who will take account of my deeds upon my death? وَمَا لِي لَا أَعْبُدُ لِفَطَرَنِي وَإِلَيْهِ تُرْجَعُونَ. So that was his second argument. And then he reasoned further with them about the physical needs of life, like protection and support. Do these other gods and deities have any power to protect me against my Lord? أَتَّخِذُ مِن دُونِهِ آلِهَةً إِن يُرِدْنِ الرَّحْمَنُ بِضُرٍّ لَا تُغْنِ عَنِّي شَفَاعَتُهُمْ شَيْئًا وَلَا يُنقِذُونَ. And then finally, he closes off the argument with self-reflection, that I will be in great error if I associated partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And notice his approach, he took it upon himself instead of criticizing his people directly, which would have angered them even more, and they would not listen to him at all. So he said, Inni idha lafi dhalalin mubin. So we see how when we are inviting people to the truth, to Islam, it requires selflessness, patience, and wisdom, like Habib Najjar did in calling his people towards the truth. Inni amantu bi rabbikum fasma'un. Indeed, I have believed in your Lord, so listen to me. قِيلَ ادْخُلِ الْجَنَّةَ قَالَ يَا لَيْتَ قَوْمِي يَعْلَمُونَ. It was said, enter paradise. He said, I wish my people could know. بِمَا غَفَرَ لِي رَبِّي وَجَعَلَنِي مِنَ الْمُكْرَمِينَ. Of how my Lord has given me and placed me among the honored. When Habib Najjar was killed, he was martyred, it was said to him to enter paradise. And then when he saw the blessings and rewards in paradise, he wished that his people also knew about these blessings, so they would also accept the faith. In the example of Habib Najjar, there are lessons of authenticity and welfare. When he accepted Islam, he was certain that this was the true faith and the only way to salvation. He had concern for his people, so when they became hostile towards the messengers, he tactfully tried to persuade them otherwise. And instead, when they targeted Habib Najjar and killed him, he was so genuine that upon receiving the glad tidings of paradise, he wished his people knew his outcome so they could also be guided. And again, such would be the approach of anyone calling people towards Islam, even in today's world. Let's review verses 20-27. Calling people towards Allah requires patience and wisdom. One should proclaim the truth even under the risk of retaliation and oppression, and then martyrs are rewarded with a high status in paradise. وَمَا أَنزَلْنَا عَلَى قَوْمِهِ مِنْ بَعْدِهِ مِنْ جُنْدٍ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ وَمَا كُنَّا مُنزِلِينَ. And we did not send upon his people after him any soldiers from the heaven, nor would we have done so. إِنْ كَانَتْ إِلَّا صَيْحَةً وَاحِدَةً فَإِذَا هُمْ خَامِدُونَ. It was not but one shout, and immediately they were extinguished. So Khamidun means Mayyitun, they were dead. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punished the town of Habib Najjar with a single cry, which was unbearable by the people, and they all died immediately. And these verses give a glimpse of Allah's power, that He did not need to send an army of soldiers to fulfill His orders, but something as simple as a loud sound was enough to destroy the entire town. يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون. How regretful for the servants, there did not come to them any messenger except that they used to ridicule him. This verse reflects upon the unfortunate fact that mankind has repeatedly rejected messengers from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who actually came to guide them to salvation. And this regret is so profound because this rejection leads to eternal punishment in hellfire. If only people of today could take heed and change their behavior so they could avoid the permanent state of failure in their hereafter. That is the lesson to learn from history. أَلَمْ يَرَوْا كَمْ أَهْلَكْنَا قَبْلَهُمْ مِنَ الْقُرُونِ أَنَّهُمْ إِلَيْهِمْ لَا يَرْجِعُونَ. Have they not considered how many generations we destroyed before them, that they will not return to them? So al-Qurun means al-Umam al-Sabiqa, previous nations. وَإِن كُلٌّ لَمَّا جَمِيعٌ لَدَيْنَا مُحْضَرُونَ. And indeed, all of them will yet be brought present before us. These verses refute the false notion of reincarnation prevalent among some nations of the past. So they believed that there is no resurrection, rather people would keep returning back to this world in a different form of life. So we learn in Surah Mu'minun, verse 37, إِنْ هِيَ إِلَّا حَيَاتُنَا الدُّنْيَا نَمُوتُ وَنَحْيَا وَمَا نَحْنُ بِمَبْعُوثِينَ. So that was the belief of such people. Life is not but our worldly life. We die and live, but we will not be resurrected. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has discredited this theory of reincarnation in these verses. And then there's also a reminder to us in these verses to learn from history. We see how nations of the past have perished irrespective of their power and intelligence. And more importantly, we should be well aware that there's no returning back to this world for a second chance, since none of these nations ever came back. A second reminder here is about resurrection, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will eventually gather everyone and take account of our deeds. Let's review verses 28 to 32. It is easy for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to destroy any nation, regardless of their strength and power, and one should take heed from the rejection and punishment of past nations. Finally, Muslims believe in resurrection, not reincarnation. We'll stop here, inshallah. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم